Good morning, class. Today we're going to be learning more about fractions. We're going to learn how to add and subtract common and unlike denominators. I thought that we would start off with some review to get your guys' brains going and we could figure out this together. Let's talk about the different ways that we could write and also say fractions. As we learned from last week, you could say a fraction as a decimal or vice versa. Let's begin. Okay, class, we're going to move on to something a little more challenging now. I'm going to say the fraction in uniform, and I want you to say it in decimal form. Is everyone ready?
Yes.
3/10.
3.0.
I'm really sorry, that was a great try, but if we remember, we have 3/10. So when we have 3/10, the decimal form is 0.3. Now let's try again. 7/10.
0.7.
Great job! So class, now we're going to be looking at what 1/2 equals to. I'm going to give you the denominator and you give me the numerator.
5.
Very good. Now how do you get that?
Multiply 5 over 5 to get 5/10.
Very good. So if we take 1/2 and multiply it by 5 over 5, we get 5/10. Now, can you say 5/10 in a decimal form?
0.5.
Very good. Can we say 1/2 in decimal form?
0.5.
Now, why is 1/2 and 5/10 both equal to 0.5?
Because they equal each other.
Very good. Okay, so now we're just going to look at a quick decimal, and we're going to see if we could transform it into a fraction. Now, class, this is 3.5. Do we know how to convert it into a fraction?
No, that looks confusing. How do I do that?
So, as we remember from our last example, 0.5 equals 1/2. So, you're going to take the 3, and we're going to carry it down, and we're going to have 3 and 1/2. Does that make more sense now?
Yeah, a lot.
Or, if we look at the 3, remember that if we did 9 over 3, and with simple division, that equals to what?
3.
Very good, class. Now let's look at a different example. Let's do 4.5 and 6.5. Now, how do we write 4.5 as a fraction?
4 and 1/2.
Very good, Hannah. Now, how do we do 6.5?
6 and 1/2.
Very good, class. You guys are really getting the hang of it. So now, we're going to do some review on how to add and subtract common denominators. Let's say you have 1/2 and 3/4. As we know, 2 and 4 are not the same, so you cannot add or subtract them. But if we had 5/10 and 3/10, then we know we can equal out to 8/10 because we have a common denominator. But we also can subtract them because we still have the common denominator of 10, so then you would have 2/10. Another way to look at this is having 1/2 minus 1/2 would equal out to 0. Remember, if you have the same fraction, overall, we end up with a 0. But if you have 1/2 plus 1/2, then we would equal to 2 over 2, and with some simple division, as you guys know, we would equal out to 1. Okay, so now we're going to learn about some unlike denominators. If we had 1/2 and 3/2, we know that that has a common denominator. But when we look at 1/2 and 2/4, we know that that is unlike. So we obviously cannot add or subtract them. Now, if we look at 1/2, we want to have a common denominator of 4. So what we're going to do is multiply the fraction by 2 over 2 to get 2/4. So if we have 2/4 plus 2/4, what does that equal, class?
4/4.
Very good. Now, with some simple division, what does 4/4 equal?
1.
Awesome! All right, let's try another example. Make this a little trickier for you guys. So let's say we look at 5/10 and 3/8. As you know, 8 does not go into 10 in any possible way. So we have to multiply each fraction to get a common denominator. So if we look at 5/10, what do we have to get to have a common denominator between 10 and 8?
4.
No! Very good try, but that was really close. We want a common denominator to equal out to 80 because that is the only thing that they have in common. So if you multiply it by 8/8, does anyone know what 8 times 5 is?
40.
So we have 40th 80. So there's one fraction, 40/80. And then, if we just erase, and we have 3/8, what do we have to multiply this by to get to 80?
10.
Very good. So we multiply by 10/10 to equal to 30th 80. So now we can add them together, and we have 40/80 plus 30/80. And since we have a common denominator, we could add, and what does that equal to, class?
70/80.
Very good. And if we wanted to take a step even further and simplify, what would be the answer?
7/8.
Very good, class. I'm really proud that you guys are getting the hang of it.